Welcome to Decoding the Beast System, How You Can Escape the Matrix, a podcast that unravels the unseen forces shaping our world and impacting our lives, hosted by Kelly Hawley, with co-host Mike Van Wagenen and researcher Christie Snow. This podcast boldly exposes the truth behind childhood exploitation, trafficking, ritual abuse, and mind control.
Join us as we explore how these issues affect survivors while having a major impact in society as a whole. We'll also uncover biblical truths, tying in history with current events while offering hope and healing.
This isn't just about exposing the darkness, it's actually about giving you the tools that you need to escape the matrix, and we believe that we are going to be able to offer a lot on that front.
Together, we'll dive deep into research, programming, and God's Word to help you have everything you need to find truth and heal in this broken world.
Prepare to have your eyes opened. Decoding the Beast System, How You Can Escape the Matrix, shedding light in the darkest corners of our world, one episode at a time. Subscribe now for the truth they never wanted told.
Hello and welcome back to Decoding the Beast System, Part 2. If you saw Part 1, we talked about back from the beginning of the Garden of Eden up and throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament, and did correlations of what we're seeing today. On Part 2, we want to pick up for over the last 100 years or so and how things have evolved with the secret societies and tying it into how it affects us today. So with that being said, thank you for joining us, and let's jump in. So I want to kick this off with the statement of Kabbalah. Okay, we talked a little bit about that in the episode 1. And Kabbalah is the Hebrew witchcraft. It's the foundation of all occultism and secret societies, including the Messianic Lodge. There is a Kabbalah tree in the mind of every mind control victim. Okay, so we're always tying everything back to the children and the survivors of childhood exploitation and mind control. So this is very key for them, and it's key for what is affecting us and what's coming against us. So where I want to start right now is a little bit before 1776. And I'm going to read a few statements, and then if Mike and Christy, whenever you want to jump in on any of those statements, do. I'll pause for a minute, and you say whatever you'd like, okay? So before 1776, ancient Canaanite pagan religion existed at the time of Ahab and Jezebel. In the first century, there was Paramon, they called it, Paragam. And then mystery religion of the ancient Egypt, Greece, India, and Rome. Early occultism is seen in the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Characteristics of enslavement include rituals with torture, trauma and intimidation, the use of potions and drugs, and the casting of spells and hypnotism. I feel like definitely somebody needs to say something about that point. Mm-hmm. Anything?
Drugs.
Drugs is definitely one.
Yep.
Pharmaceuticals, yes.
I can tell you with the survivor of programming, these things are reported today as still happening. They torture them. They do rituals. They do trauma, severe trauma that we would never think about. But a lot of you, if you've been listening to some things, you're starting to hear about the skinning and things of that sort.
Out right now, there's a Netflix show about Charles Manson and Chaos. They go into the drugs they were using to get the girls to do what he wanted them to do. And it's like crazy cocktail stuff. Yeah,
and it's amazing. There's that word chaos again. Always trying to cause chaos. And yeah, there is a lot of drugs used. I mean, the reports of things being put in the children, the things being pulled out of the children, the things put on their mouth, and then they, black out. It's just a lot, right? So back then, way back then, it hasn't changed that much. Okay. Hypnotism, huge. A lot of the survivors, their eyes would go like this, until they start to get, healed. So you'll see a lot of that occurred. And there's a lot of hypnotism within the counseling arena today. So, it's been infiltrated, just like everything else.
sure.
There's infiltration. And a lot of them will use that. And then what about ketamine? Ketamine is the big thing right now, right? Yeah. And it's been for a little bit, these ketamine clinics. And then next thing you know, our children are totally addicted to it. And I had one pastor of all, I thought he did the same thing I did. So I went to see him to see if there could be networking. And he told me how, once I got there, he said, well, I got to tell you, I'm not doing what I was doing like you. We're totally ketamine now. And he starts telling me how you can hear God. Better. You can hear the voice of God. And then
it's probably not
like
the one you want,
voice.
though.
It's not the right God, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I'd like to point out something, too, that's kind of new, that just started this century. Is called microdosing.
I was going to just say that, too.
Yeah.
That's another one.
Yeah, that microdosing, that is really, it started getting some legs around like 2015, and it's really kicking in now. A lot of people are doing that. Because
everywhere.
Yeah, it's
everywhere you look
everywhere.
right now, they're talking about mushrooms.
And just take just a little bit. Like everybody says it's bad and it can kill you, but if you just take a little bitty bit and a little bit, but that's how everything starts. Every addiction started with one sip.
And that's
There's
how
not
they
an
get the kids
alcoholic on
also.
this-
They bring
there's-
it down, right? And then it's easier for you to agree to make an agreement to let something in.
It is. I
Your
mean, there's-
defenses are down.
Yeah, there's not an alcoholic on earth that didn't take the first sip, or a drug addict that didn't shoot up the first time. I mean, honestly.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say about the kids, they're like, well, the kids are so innocent. Well, how could they have made a decision or whatever? Look, if you drink a Coke and it's filled with cyanide and you drink it, you think it's a Coke. It's innocent, right?
It's still going to kill you.
It's still cyanide. It's
Yeah,
going to kill you.
it's still there.
So it's... They're very, as you stated before, they're very literal
They don't
with
play,
their contracts.
and they don't play
Yes.
fair. No. They don't play fair, and that's the thing. You have to get that out of your head. Well, that's not fair. I know, because we're talking about Satan here. We're not talking about a nice person.
There's no empathy.
Yes, there's
At
no
all.
empathy.
It's
You're,
a literal,
empathy at
literal
all.
contract.
Okay, so all these things are still going on majorly today, and hasn't changed. So then, 2nd century Rome, there were reports of human sacrifice and cannibalism. Rome, a lot of stuff going on in Rome. Vatican, all that, right? Been going on for a long time. Any comments? You got anything on your octopus there
Sure.
about that?
I'll be glad to tell you about that. In fact, when we talk about Nimrod, earlier I spoke of the lands that Nimrod created. Those lands that he created are not just Babylon and Egypt, but we're also including India. There's a lot of lands here. All of the places that have those gods, and eventually it led to the creation of Rome too. So that's what I'm saying. All of these, even though that they appear to be kind of enemies, or you would think, well, Rome and Greeks aren't together or whatever. No, but this goes to the same thing that I keep saying. They're like brothers, okay? They follow the orders of their father, ultimately do whatever it is to please him, but at the same time does not mean that there is not sibling rivalry. They are in competition with each other too. So you have to keep that in mind. All of these, everything is from the same source. The octopus. The giant octopus is Satan, and under him the fallen angels. All of the tentacles come from that one source. And those tentacles are everywhere. They reach up in the air. They reach into the ground.
Yeah, and I would also say, like, if you take something that really originated kind of in Rome is like Mithraism and the Mithraic type, and that's worldwide now,
Yeah,
right?
it's
And then
worldwide.
we just had the Olympics in France. So the whole Olympics is basically a Mithraic ceremony.
Yes.
Their mascot is a Mithraic hat. Everything
Yes.
that happened in that ceremony was Mithraic. So yeah, that's a different faction, a particular faction of people that are following Satan, Lucifer.
Right, and that goes into this thing about what I have down here about little g gods.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what their name is. I cannot emphasize this enough. Everything evil has many names.
Yeah, and someplace
That's
else
how it
it would
goes.
be called Cybele or
Right. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter if it's Greek, if it's Roman, if it's Hindu, whatever God that you're talking about, there is an equal representation in every other culture because it is ultimately the same entity that is controlled by the same principality, like every single time.
That was one that was one rabbit hole that kind of almost led me to you, because you start with the Sumerian gods, and then you go to the Roman gods, the Greek gods, and then you start to see these are all the same.
The stories,
they're the same. I'm like, these are the same gods doing the same thing, the fallen angels or the Nephilim, fallen angels' children, and then their dominions, and then all the things that they're, the ones that are angry, the ones that are doing this, like, they're the same in each culture all over the world. And you start to go, wow, this is what it is. It is all tied together.
And me, got to remember my perspective, what I'm coming from, the children and mind control. The representation of mind control on the child's head is the octopus with a bunch of tentacles. And so that goes right along with it. And you have the 7 spirits of Satan going down there, and then the seed of Satan and Lucifer and all that on the head of the child.
Yes.
And then
they use Hermetic magic to put those symbols inside the children's system. That is the method that they use
seal it up
to build that temple that you were speaking of earlier. That's what it is. It's Hermetic magic.
Absolutely. I had another thought about it, but it just went out the door. So I'm
well,
sure
here, I'll
it'll
tell you
come back.
one while you get that. There was, recently looking at a study about the book, The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, and it was a breakdown about how really that's a book about mind control. Yeah. And if you look at it, he was in the CIA, that he spends the whole book wearing a red hunting hat that goes over his things, kind of Mithraic with the size over thing. He talks about killing people, the whole book. Like, great book for kids' schools, by the way.
Yeah.
And, like, the more it goes into it, he talks about, like, how he was sexually abused by therapists. He was like, there's, if you get into that book is about a child being mind controlled. Like, there's
a lot of
no
them
question.
are actually.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of it's symbolism and stuff. And some are more.
It's been
out
lightened up so they can
Yeah.
distribute it to schools, but
Yeah. I thought of what it was. Again, correlating it to the child and what they do to them. They often will put them in a suit. It's like a black suit. And then it will have all these wires that are electric plugged into their head and into their body. And then a lot of time immerse them into the water. Octopus in the water.
Absolutely.
So
and like all those tentacles right there, what happens when the human body touches those?
Get electrocuted.
That's where you get the bites, the shock with
Little
the
shocks.
bites.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff is tied together.
It is. I mean, everything is connected. It really is. Everything in the occult, regardless of what title that they put it under, is connected to everything else. So it doesn't matter. No matter how you slice it, everything will go back to that head. It has one head. There's one head. There may be like 20 billion tentacles, but there's one head, always.
Okay, so back in Rome, what we just talked about, there were reports of human sacrifice and cannibalism. These two things are very important. Again, just like we talked about with the Book of the Dead, Egypt, it's still going on. The sacrifices and cannibalism is going on. And Hollywood is starting, has been a little bit disclosing it a little bit, but most people just think they're making fun or whatever because they laugh at the end. But no, they really do it. And part of it is they're trying to get the life force. They're trying to get the giftings. They're trying to get various things from whatever that was that they ate. And even in the ritual, they might make them bite or eat the heart or the lung or whatever. And to put that in an example, if we see people that get transfused, like a lung
Transplant.
Transplant. Yeah, I was losing my word there. Transplant. Often you'll find reports of, well, now this person loves to smoke or something like that,
or they
right?
speak a different language.
Where they didn't.
Or,
because the life force and some of the DNA and the habits and everything and the giftings or not giftings was in that. You know, it was in the blood, it was in that, and they've just brought it over. And so they have started perfecting that.
Yes.
You know, not even started. They've been doing it for a long time. But they take and, you know, even Scripture says trading of the souls of men. It talks about that. And so they've, you know, did that where they're swapping souls, they're swapping body parts, they're making them eat and stuff like that. And it's part of where some of the elite are looking for eternal life. Let me just put part of you into this other body. Clones or not clones.
Right.
And just, again, it's that chaos, it's that big mixing going on.
Right.
And they're looking to design like a demigod, basically. They want the most gifts, they want to live the longest, they want to have, you know, all these things, a design or human being for themselves that lives forever. And this is really going on. I mean, it's like...
But then also beyond that, you know, they put all this work into creating these mind control folks. You know, they need to keep them going and, you know, keep them working. They got a lot of pretty big investment there.
They're working on all fronts. You know. On any and everything that they can do, they want to do it all at one time. So that's why there's so many. The reason there are so many secret societies, like you can't even list them all. The reason there are so many of them is because each one appeals to something different. They're ultimately the same, all under the same umbrella, but this one's for this type of person, so they feel special. This is for this type of people, and they feel special. That's all that's about. It's the same thing. They're just using hubris. You know, they're just using the human ego against us, and the people will be like, oh, well, I'm a member of this. I was a member of that.
Right. You
I
can't
was
use the
this
same
fraternity.
one at Yale University that you're going to use, you know, in,
exactly.
in downtown, you know, school system.
Right. But it doesn't matter because when you get down to it, I don't care which one of those things that you're from, you are committing the same sins. You're all, regardless of how high up that you are, you need to realize what you're in and you need to repent.
So would you agree that some of them have a slightly different reason? For instance, the purebloods, they want to have the best war weapons and they want to get the most accolades in science. The Masons want to become eternal life and demigods. Jesuits are looking for power, pleasure, and money. CIA is looking for warfare. Others are just, other cults, sometimes it's just hatred, or the parents need money for their addiction or for whatever, so they sell the children. Some of it, there is a transfer of, there's something called sin eaters, where it's like a scapegoat in the Bible, right? So you're carrying all the sin, and you put it on the child that's sitting there as a sacrifice, and so you're unloading your sin, and then ultimately the Nephilim, the fallen angel, eats the sin, eats the energy, and so that's a way to unload that as well. So I think they have, I mean, agree or disagree, but I think they have maybe a slightly different bent, but ultimately.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, and then we have the 12th century French Crusades that formed the Knights Templar, which is worship of Satan in the form of Baphomet. Again, we see that still. Had lunch with somebody and they had the Knights Templar pin. I'm like, what is that? Okay.
Quite often.
And they're like they had forgotten that they put it there, especially having lunch with me, you know what I mean? I was
there's one of the Trumps has it on his gun.
Yeah.
Like, literally, the Templar cross.
Yeah, lovely. That to me is a big red flag. You know, and what do you have to say, if anything, about the worship of Satan and Baphomet for that?
So much. So, like, I agree. It started in the Templars.
That's its own series of podcasts.
Yeah, it could be. It could be, and
well, we
maybe
don't have to- yeah,
maybe
we
we
can do
will. But they were the first group that were given the right to lend money, right, or protect money, and they were supposed to be protecting pilgrims on their way to go to the Holy Land and back, and then so they would take their money, hold it, and then they could get it once they passed the path, the dangerous path, and then get it on the other end. And they were, of course, charging fees for that. So they were really the first authorized bank.
The first Federal Reserve.
Yeah, right. And they made a fortune. They became very powerful. And many believe that's when they went and dug up Solomon's temple and found things under Solomon's temple that led them down that road to Baphomet worship and things like that. Where they wind up becoming so powerful that they're now like kind of almost enemies of the Vatican. They're basically ordering kings around. And I believe it was the King of France that basically decided to round them up in the middle of the night and kind of started getting confessions out of them. Some people say were coerced, but they basically admitted to male sex with each other, worshiping Baphomet. Statues were brought out. A lot of stuff was brought out from that. And then some were burned at the stake, but a number of them escaped, I believe, to Scotland.
Yes, they were not eradicated. And I fully believe that they're the ones that brought in the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think one of the places they escaped to also was America.
Yes.
And they found evidence of that.
Well, there's tons of evidence proving that the Scottish Freemasons came to America and cohabitated, intermingled, intermarried into Native American tribes. And some of their leaders, like the main leaders of the entire tribe, would be half Scottish Freemason, half Native American. Mm-hmm. That's everywhere.
Mm-hmm. And you'll see that. You'll see these like areas like within that initially developed part of America where you'll have these very small towns that have Freemasonic temples and like tunnels dug into the thing that seemed to go to nowhere. I was just looking up one. There's in North Carolina. I can't remember the name of it, but there's quite a few where they start digging, tunnels and going into the earth and things like that. It's not far. It's not far from here. There's a lot of people that think
it's around us. The over 330 mines.
Yeah.
In this area.
And a lot of people think the Indians' mounds were more of those tunnels that were just occurring underground things. In any case, they came here, they started doing stuff right away. And if you went back in time and you looked, you find these cities had 30, 40 people at it, yet they have this huge, massive Masonic building and Masonic school. There's nobody living in the town,
Do you feel like these things start with good intention and then just sin enters, and then next thing you know, especially there's money and they start, manipulating it? Or
you mean the organizations themselves?
Yeah.
Or the people, or the individual people joining them?
I think they're welcomed because they come with good intentions, but I don't think their intentions are ever good.
The intentions of the organizations, I don't think are ever good.
From the very beginning.
From the very beginning, they have never, ever been good. They have only been a tool of chaos and destruction. Now, as far as individual people go, that's a different thing, because the truth is most are just deceived. Most people going into it, and they don't realize what they're doing. And especially like, in the lodges, they go in and they think, oh, well, this is just like a little play or something. I have to have this little sleeve here and this, what I mean, and whatever. It's not a big deal. And what happens, though, every single time that you go into the lodge and you do their prayer, okay, and they'll tell you, doesn't matter which God, you can go into one and say, but, my God is really Allah. That's no problem, sure. Whatever your God's name is. That should be your first clue, okay? So, like, especially from this area, And especially like, Baptists. Like I said, I'll call them out because I was born and raised one, so I can say that. Do this. Are extremely guilty of that. Go in there and they'll be like, oh, well, we pray. Yeah. Who do you pray to? Did you ask anything in there at any point in time when you were doing those prayers? Did they say that you were praying to Jesus?
The true Jesus.
Right.
Or if they say God, do you say which God?
Yeah, they just say God generically. Why do you think they generically say God? Mm-hmm.
They're not talking about the ones that we believe in.
And then what happens is you go up higher and higher, more of that knowledge starts to be revealed to you. So you start to kind of see it some. But see, at this point, you're already in there, and now you're moving up. So then you start selling off little pieces. And it all starts small because everything starts with that first sip, that first drink, that first vow, that first prayer.
In Freemasonry, I think it's at the 16th level that they're like openly saying like it's
when
Lucifer.
You really get
it's
up
Lucifer.
To it.
That we've been talking about.
But if you've gotten up to 30, it's Lucifer.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I've learned in doing the work that I do is not everybody wants to be in there. A lot of them are born into it and whatnot, but they're trapped. Like they will kill them.
Yes.
Yes. You will get blackmailed. You get killed. You'll get whatever. So some don't want to be in there, but they see no way out. Mm-hmm. The other thing I've learned in this work,
which there's always a way out. We know there
is. Now sometimes it might cost you your life, but you know what? You'll be in paradise for eternity.
But if we can get with the right people and get praying up and get protected.
Yes. Now, in terms of survivors and get that healing, yes, absolutely. But there are some that it does cost them their life. But at least they know they're not going to eternity in the lake of fire. Mm-hmm. They're going to go with Yeshua, and they're going to find true love and happiness and all that. So my heart goes out for them, as well as, of course, the survivors. But that is one thing that the Lord's made clear to me. Mm-hmm. The other thing is I've also learned that they always want to front, okay? So some of those people that are coming in that don't want to do their things, or they see that this person you can't reveal stuff to, well, they're a good front. Mm-hmm. Send them out to do the charity. Mm-hmm. Send them out and make them believe that this is what, we're all about.
They're all handpicked. Once they're in, they're like, okay, this guy's this guy. This guy's
that's
muscle.
The reason that they recruit them.
She's going to go to church, and she's going to infiltrate the church. And
that's why they recruit them from certain places. Mm-hmm. They have specific recruiting grounds where they get people from on purpose, because they're like, okay, hey, look, we just got this new guy on the force, and I think you could really use him for this. Mm-hmm. And that's what they do. Mm-hmm. Literally what they do.
Yeah.
Yes.
And next thing you know, you're so tied in.
Yeah, and then once you do it, you may not have realized, what you were getting into, how it was going to be, because you thought, well, it's just a good Christian organization. All these people are Christian. All these people go to church. These people are deacons. Like, I can't even tell you how many deacons are high up.
And you get compromised, and next thing you know, you're just you feel like there's no way out.
Right.
Yeah. But I will say, you went from the Templars, which really was probably the biggest one that was outed. I'm sure been going on plenty of time for that. They were busted. They were like pretty much cold busted. Mm-hmm. And they built up these huge churches and huge things like that where they would do the banking, collect the money. And I was in Portugal not too long ago, got to see where they were headquartered for some of it. It'd blow your mind. Beautiful, beautiful cathedrals and things like that. But so much money flowing in and out of that area. But then you kind of move on to that. And the next big one, I think, is guy's name is like Eliphas Levi in the 1600s. He was the first one to like paint pictures of Baphomet.
Levi. Yes,
right.
He was the one.
He's a big one.
He's the one that's credited with the illustration of Baphomet. He's the one that actually made the drawing of the androgynous three-godded figure. That it's
that
always
people
that
still
same
see
thing.
today.
Like the whole thing with Isis and the whole three-godded thing. There's in different places the three gods have different names, so there's so many of them, but it's all basically the same. It is like the male and the female, and then the joining together of the male and the female. It's
and then
their
he's also
Trinity.
Preaching it's okay to have sex with your family, your daughters.
Their inversion of the Holy Trinity.
This book is, by the way, there's the book Ordo Ab Chao, it's called, 6-volume series. It goes like literally back that far and brings it all up to the current date, all the shady stuff that they've been doing under these names, and it is unbelievable. Like, it's a lot. There's only 2 volumes here, and there's 4 others. But I will tell you, you go to any section in time, it'll go all the way through the elections in the U.S., Kennedy assassination, and it goes all the way forward. And if you're ever looking at a spot and you're like, what kind of evil stuff were they up to during this? Oh, I was wondering about that. And it'll tell you, like, literally, if I look at that one, it's like, here, this is the alchemical wedding, the Rosicrucian Pharaoh. It goes all the way back 1666. Here we go. 5th monarchy, Dutch Jerusalem, Hope of Israel, Saturn's Jews. So it goes pretty deep.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is a good reference point for me. This is where I always come back to.
It's the order out of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so important for everybody to do their own research. And again, send us an email if you have found some different information. Yeah. Iron sharpens iron, right? All right, so let's go on to 1404. Gilles de Rais, a French aristocrat, confesses to sexual abuse and murder of over 800 children, sexually assaulting their mutilated corpses and destroying the evidence by burning. Still going on. That's 1404. 1519, the wife of King Henry II of France, Katherine Deay Medici, offers child sacrifices to appease the devil, supposedly with the intention of curing her son, Philip, from a disease.
Yes. The Medicis, that is a very, very powerful bloodline family.
Mm-hmm.
Still.
Yeah.
Yes.
Still here, right? Yeah.
Still here today, and especially back then. And by the way, that disease that she's trying to cure her son from is one of their diseases caused by inbreeding.
I'm sure.
They have several blood disorders, and even you probably heard of this thing called the Habsburg jaw, with the really distorted jaw. That is also a product of inbreeding. That came from a royal line who inbred so much that everyone was born with a deformed jaw, and it was lowering IQs and everything.
Yeah.
So much so that even they had to stop for themselves.
Well, I heard, and I don't know the truth of this, maybe you can, that every so often they have to insert somebody that's not
yes,
of that lineage.
Thus, that's where you get that from. That's why you have 13 bloodline families, because then they'll just go pull somebody from one of the other ones. But see, the problem is you pulled so many people from here and there, and they went all over the place till now all of them are kind of intermixed. You see, so they're to the point now, the younger generations of all of the bloodline families are now pretty much related to all the other bloodline families. So they're turning themselves... They're taking all of their pure blood and turning all of it into blue blood. That's what they're doing.
Do you want to quickly just explain the difference between pure blood and blue blood?
Okay, it's kind of complicated to explain quickly.
Okay, maybe we'll keep it.
Yeah, I'm
Come
I
back
don't
onto
know.
that one.
I'm
But-
afraid to I don't know how to shorten that.
Okay.
I'll just try to figure that out.
Okay.
Some stuff I don't know. I have a really difficult time figuring out the amount of stuff that the amount of information that I have about one particular subject.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes me a little bit to figure out how in the world I can possibly condense that into something short enough that I could actually tell someone.
It can be hard.
I think
Yeah,
the pure
it's
bloods
really
are.
difficult.
They believe they're from the Aryan race, right?
Yeah,
They're
they think
right.
that they have a certain. It's not just Aryan. Aryan's one of those words they like to throw out there because that keeps us in our little bubble of racial terms. It's not that those people think they're white. Those people are, I mean, they're all different. They're like, some of those people are like what we know today is like Jews. Some are of Italian lineages. They have Hispanic lineages. They are attached to the Moors from Africa. So this is not, they're not, when you say the word Aryan, they've given that like a false name because that makes all the modern day people think you mean like they all think they're white. And that's not true. They don't give a crap about being white. I don't think that they care what color they are. That's not the point to them. Mm-hmm. You know, that's what they want you to think. That's a distraction. If you're so hung up on the color of their skin, then you won't even pay attention to what they're actually doing. That's part of it. That they create these race problems.
So,
you know, on purpose.
well, I know they ultimately just want control and they want to own everything and all that.
Yeah.
What else?
That would also be part of like that faction infighting.
Yeah.
That's going on between the different sects, and even in the U.S., you have the different sects. You have the green dragons, the red dragons. That you know, each quadrant of the U.S. is controlled by a different group of dragons.
Yes, but when you're talking about pure bloods, I think that what they are actually talking about is they are actually pure. They're from the major, probably what I would call the Council of Nine. You're just going to have to look that up yourself. There's no way I can go into that. Mm-hmm. But I think that they're probably like from the Council of Nine. So this would mean that they're from the main, like the head, okay, the head of the organization of fallen angels. They're from those bloodlines. They're the Nephilim product, you know, generations down from the product of the mixing of those particular principality angels, those angels that are over principalities. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones that mixed with humans. They're the products in the line of those.
And they
That's
consider
what that
themselves
lineage
the
is.
royalty.
Yeah, so it's nothing to do with race or nationality. Like those are two small terms that everyone thinks of because it's just we've been programmed to think of everything in those terms. But when you want to get into this type of research and go down this deep, you're going to have to let go of all of that stuff. All of this here and now, what we do with it, and let go of all of that. Forget it from this standpoint of our culture and go back and look at what it was from the very beginning before there was a culture.
Right.
Before
There's
there
a good source for that. Gary
races.
Wayne's a good source for that. He is very knowledgeable about those lines and how it travels down and how they, you know, fight with each other and what they believe on each one. But your timeline, the Rosicrucians, that's about the time they come on the scene right there, is in that 1600s when you're talking about that mix between Rome and... what was it? Rome and France.
Yeah, because
that's when you kind of start to get that Medici showing up. And, Rosy Cross.
The Rosy Cross.
All right, well, let's move on. I have a survivor that is very high up, and she gave me a real simple definition between the two. But maybe on the next episode, I'll let you know what she said. That was like, oh, okay, but I don't remember what it was right now, and I don't see my note.
Oh, well, if it comes back to you, you got to tell people you can't leave them hanging.
Well, I will. I'll come back to it. All right, so now we got 1647. We got Sister Bevent, a Parisian nun, participated in a ritual ceremony where the body of a child is consumed as a perversion of the Lord's Supper. Well, what do you know? Didn't we just see perversion of the Lord's Supper within the last year?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
At the Olympics, the Mithraic Olympics.
Which is a ritual. I mean, they have the children do it, and then they do it and put it in front of us, and we watch it. And when we watch it, we come in agreement with it. I don't watch it.
No, I don't watch it either.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a turn off for me, or at least to walk out of the room. Because
yeah, it's rough. Okay, 1680, Katherine Deay confesses to participating in ritual deaths of more than 2,500 fetuses and infants. Her 21-year-old daughter, Marie, describes satanic rituals involving the drinking of blood and urine, animal sacrifices, orgies involving adults and children, child sacrifices, chanting blasphemy in the name of Satan, a police raid of their house confirms ovens with forensics evidence indicating that they have been used to burn the victims' bodies. I was just told by somebody that a deacon kept like not letting people in his house, and then finally one day somebody was like, "You're letting me in," because something wasn't add up, and they had ovens and stuff like that. They had all this stuff in the house.
And where was it you said that one took place?
That's around the 1600s. That's probably Europe.
Doesn't
somewhere.
exactly say where. It's Katherine Deay's.
Yeah.
1680.
I mean, when you get into
That sounds, reason I'm
US,
saying this, it sounds a little French and possibly Creole, and it makes a lot of sense because some of the very same thing was happening in New Orleans. If people have heard of Madame Delphine Lalaurie, she has her house still sits there in the French Quarter, and they turned it into like some apartments. I can't even imagine why anybody would want to go in there, because she had people in cages. She was conducting experiments on them. She would cut off pieces of one person and try to put it on another person. I mean, she was doing all manner of that kind of stuff. And that's what that kind of reminded me of. And I wonder if there's some kind of connection there. So now my brain is going to start looking for it.
I mean, when you look at the U.S. and how the U.S. was founded, the people are founding fathers and stuff. You know, I know a lot of people like, what? But it was Benjamin Franklin. They found something like 80 bodies under his house.
Exactly.
And he was like, conducting experiments on shit. They were all kids' bodies, you know.
Well, and not to mention the fact that,
or were you doing
and
something
we were made
else?
to think
You
these
know,
people were so great.
right?
Yeah.
Like these. He's the great dude. Like,
and don't think
well,
I
he
believe
was
for a second
crazy.
doing
that
some shady stuff.
they discovered America.
Yeah.
Like, don't even get me on that one.
So
There's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The reason why we're going through all this, we don't love talking about this,
Right.
but we have to show that this has been going on and we just didn't realize it, that this is not something new. It has just it's probably grown and become, we're getting closer, in my opinion, to the end days. Certainly we're closer than we were yesterday, right? But there's signs that say things are ramped up. And I know that, years and years, people have always thought that it was end times and it could always get worse. But when are we going to do something about it? When are we going to stand up and say no more? When are we going to insist on putting an end to this? When are we going to unite?
And I think the biggest thing is if you can open your eyes to the symbolism where you start to see, because they use it on everything they do, on all their buildings and all their
It's
flags
their language.
and all that. It is their language.
It's their
And
language.
if you can get to understand the symbolism, and then you start walking around in life, and you'll start being like, that's shady, shady, and then you see some of the more overt ones. Why don't you try walk in?
Yeah.
Go walk in that building, see what happens. It's going to be real entertaining for you.
Well, at the end of this episode, we're going to be blessed with Mike going over some of the symbols for us.
But yeah, and I'm just saying, like, you just learn that part of it, because all the rest of it becomes a lot more obvious, because you starts to just
start tying it all together.
fall together.
Yeah. All right, we're about to get to 1776, so let's finish with this. Franz Messmer, which is from the word mesmerism, evolves, and there's experiments with hypnotic trances. We talked about that in the last episode, where hypnotism is used a lot with the survivors. During 1776, on May 1st of 1776, Bavarian Jesuit Adam Weishaupt accomplishes the Illuminati protocols, the formation of the Illuminati by the direction of the House of Rothschild, centralizing powers of enlightened ones, including occultist bloodlines, elite secret societies, influential messianic fraternities, whose goal is the New World Order. Date is significant. It was before July 4th, the Declaration of Independence being signed. The Illuminati controls are established before the U.S. government. So that was important for them to establish that prior to that.
Right.
And
Also,
what do we
look
have
at
on
the
the
amount of
dollar bill?
university. Well, look at the amount of universities that they put in this country before it was a country. So that's always been my question. Okay, so you put a university in a place that's not even a country,
filled with savages.
then filled with so-called savages. That's the whole population, and you put a university there, and who was going to it? Okay, and also, too, if you had just a university out here and, just out in the middle of nowhere where there's nothing in no town, how are you going to feed the people at the university? I mean, how are you doing seriously? How are you getting and receiving goods? It makes no sense. There had to have been something here.
Yeah. And the building's so elaborate, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like it.
And we're supposedly, when I see some of the tools they say that they use.
Yeah, they use a chisel.
Yeah, the old
And then
world
this
thing. You
building-
get in the whole old world thing, and
Yeah.
you're just like,
I know,
all this history we've been told.
I
is
know
like,
Michelangelo's
no way, man.
David was created with a chisel. Yeah, okay.
All right,
Yeah.
we got a lot of
I got
room
news
to
for you,
cover.
but they lie a lot.
All right, y'all, I'm going to read this quick because I don't know. How are we doing on time?
47 minutes.
That's how far we are?
Yeah.
Okay. So here we go. After 1776, 1789, Marquis de Sade, a French aristocrat, details perverted activities with hundreds of children in his autobiographical pornographic book, The 100 Days of Sodom, including scenarios that include locking in cages, death threats, burying in coffins, holding underwater, threatening with weapons, drugging, bleeding, turning upside down and burning, wearing robes and costumes, staging of mock marriages, defecating, urinating on victims, killing of animals, having victims witness torture, having them witness homicides, pouring of drinking of blood, and taking victims to churches and cemeteries. That is exactly what they're doing to our children. Exactly what they're doing.
Yes.
Those are some of the rituals that occur. Lovely. So it's been going on for a long time.
Long time.
But they're perfecting it, They keep, applying modern technology and stuff to it. 18th century, Sir Francis Dashwood, the aristocrat, found the Hellfire Club. Historical documents indicating the group practices ceremonies that include black mass liturgy and sex orgies involving juveniles. Again, just nonstop. It's ridiculous. 1882, first work of behavioral science research is established in England. Much of the early medicine and psychiatric techniques involved in mind control are being pioneered at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute of Germany. One of our biggest health care insurance or health systems is Kaiser.
Kaiser permanent?
It's still there. I'm like, no. 1912. Now here you start to get into names that are more well known. Aleister Crowley joins the Ordo Templis Orientis, OTO.
Yeah, the OTO.
Orientis. His Satanism dogma is do what thou shalt, do well thou shalt, be the whole of the law.
Yeah.
How often do we hear that?
Do as thou wilt.
Yeah.
Jay-Z has it all over. He has
Yep.
a clothing company that says do as thou wilt
Yep.
all over his thing. Got it from Aleister Crowley.
Yep.
Who the Led Zeppelin guy bought Aleister Crowley's house. He's on the cover of the Beatles. Like
Yeah.
these Hollywood types, they were friends.
This is what they're doing, okay? And we're watching them and giving them money and going to concerts
Yes,
and
and who
watching them
else
exalt themselves in
Who
these
else
ceremonies.
was Aleister Crowley hanging around with at the time? Warner von Braun?
Yep.
Yeah.
Guy who
and
started
Jim
NASA.
Parsons?
Yep.
In Scientology.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yep. So Parsons started, he started like Bell Labs, propulsion labs, firing rockets
Yes.
into the sky, right?
And
For what
trying
purpose?
to burst the firmament.
Yep. And then they're friends, right? So
Yes.
they're hanging out together. That's also they were doing it on the same 33rd parallel line
Yes.
in New Mexico, right there, where they're trying to get through that firmament right there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that when it starts to come full blown
Yes.
into America, pretty much is through
That was
Aleister
a
Crowley,
big bold.
through,
That was
through
when
Parsons.
it really. That's when it really gained traction here.
Yeah, that's when Hollywood starts going
Yeah.
nuts. And
It does, and it just doesn't stop either. His work. So that is modern Satanism. So when you see that, that's modern Satanism. His workings include rituals of sodomy with a pentagram, bondage of chains, consumption of blood and feces, all those same things. And in their opinion, a male child of perfect innocence and high intelligence is the most satisfactory and suitable victim. So sometimes we would think it was the girls that they want, but really it's a male that's innocent, so young and high intelligence.
And don't forget, he wrote the Book of Thoth.
Yes, the Book of Thoth, yeah. And Crowley joins Berlin-based secret society where they do human control experiments. The two countries bond together. The Order of the Golden Dawn, a secret society consisting of high-ranking officials of the Nazi Party. So here we start to see where the Nazis come in, and the British aristocrats that uses Freemasonic grades and degrees and claims to directly descend from the Knights Templar. So all these things still here, very relevant, very we see it in our face. We just don't realize what this actually means. And when we watch these people and we pay them our money to go to the movies, we buy their records, their songs, we watch them exhort themselves in the different Grammys and Oscars. We're coming into agreement with it. So we've got to realize this stuff and come out of it. 1921, Tavistock Institute of Human Relations is set up in London for the study of breaking point for humans. So they want to know how much can they torture us.
That's when they're like, we can actually start a college of just how to mind control people. And
Well, that's pretty much what modern psychiatry is based on.
Yeah. And
yeah,
then
Tavistock was a bad one. That was a bad. That's morphed into a lot of other institutes as it went down the line. None of them have been good.
Yeah.
Lucis Trust. Same thing. Helena Blavatsky comes on the scene here.
Society,
Theosophy.
Yes.
It's like another form. The thing about these people that are following Satanism, they find different ways to call it. They're calling different things. It's this order, it's that order, it's this, it's Theosophy and Helena Blavatsky and New Age, whatever it is. They're trying to suck people in. At the top of it, it's Satanism.
Yeah.
Right. It is.
Yeah.
And they're just witches.
So I'm just going to read...
and unsuspecting people that are just like, I want to be part of a club. I want to be part of something special.
I'm going to read just the title on these because I think that this could easily be another episode in terms of the things that are really in the recent past. So things like Project Paperclip. Those are things that I'm working with people to overcome. Project Paperclip.
So for people's benefit, that's when the U.S., after we won the war with Hitler, we brought all the Nazi scientists to the United States, and they developed the NASA program.
Yep. And then even with the CIA, Alan Dulles, he becomes the head of CIA.
Dulles,
the National Security Act is also passed.
Yeah, Alan Dulles, the man that they named the airport for in D.C.
And then you have Heinrich Himmler, who was a Nazi officer. He comes over here and he's selected for breeding and adoption of children, a large number of twins. The purpose of the program is to create a super race, the Aryans. See, they want to create these super soldiers, right? And they've been hard at work at them. And the crazy thing is, one could be right next to you and you don't know it because they don't know it because of the way they fragmented them and have a host up front.
Yeah, they haven't been activated yet.
Yeah. So I kind of feel like...
And Himmler, where he was based at Wilsburg Castle in Germany, there's a black sun. They were conducting all kinds of rituals there. There's a black sun right on the floor. You go on the internet, look it up, Wilsburg Castle.
It is freaking
and it's a black sun as plain as day. Well, that's one of their big occult symbols. There's the cult of the black sun, the order of the black sun. You have the worship of Saturn, Kronos, which is the box, the black cubes, all falling in the same part. There's nothing good coming out of any of it, but...
I kind of feel like we should pick up from there on our next episode.
Yeah.
That brings us up to 1950-ish, 1940s.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode on Satan or Saturn worship.
Yeah.
Well, and also all the different
alive.
projects that there are people alive today trying to heal from.
Right.
And that's a lot of the work we do. And the projects haven't stopped. Okay, they're still doing them. So
Still happening.
this will continue. So we're going to stop there and pick it up next time. But Mike, do you want to give them at least a few of the symbols to start looking at?
Yeah, I think probably the big stuff to do here, because there's certain symbols that they do to give us away, right? So, like if they're Freemason, and you saw this even in the most recent inauguration, you'll see them all the time holding this pyramid maybe down by their laps. They're doing this. They're showing you, like, I'm part of this. You have the hidden hand. And watch for it to be happening at a strange time. Like, oh, that was an odd time for him to go like men don't carry their hands in their suit like this anymore. To drop your hands and to do this at the point that you're right in the middle of a press conference that's going big like that, they're telling you.
Right in front of the camera.
Yep, I'm part of this
Let me turn to
club.
the camera and show you.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's going to be big ones. Obviously, the signs that they're going to put on the building are going to be very large, but like celebrities, the Eye of Horus, that would be like this guy right here.
whole eye thing,
That's
yeah.
a big one. That's like everywhere. The Ankh sign. You have the skull and crossbones. That would be more of a 3-2-2 Yale one.
You see a lot of this lately.
Yep,
and
that's Osiris.
That's bondage to Satan.
Yeah.
Yep,
You know,
that
Osiris
goes back.
children.
This goes
Yeah,
back
and
to
it's
Egypt.
it's
Like,
a ball.
yep.
And Osiris, yeah.
That's a huge one. The half moon with the star in it, that's a big one. Obviously the swastika, we know about that one. That goes back many, many centuries. It's supposed to be the star of Polaris and the Big Dipper revolving around it, but it's turned into many, many other things among that group. This book that I'm looking at, it's Dr. Kathy Burns, and it's Masonic and Occult Symbols Illustrated. It explains every single one, and this book's easy to get. I bought it 2 weeks ago. I didn't pay a lot of money for it. So it's also online for free, and it literally will go through every symbol and what the history means about it, where it comes from, where you've seen it in society. So, this is a great book. It's easy to get. There's tons of symbols books, but this one is very specific to kind of a cult.
Right, and I would just give
people,
a little tip to people. If you're like me and you just really can't afford to buy a bunch of books a lot of times, if you go to the Wayback Machine, which is Internet Archives, and to the Wayback Machine, you can get a PDF for free, like you borrow, like it's like a lending library, a PDF of almost anything for free that you can look at. You just have to return it before you borrow another one. But like you can look at it, read it from your phone.
And there's
And it's
probably
free.
10 of them.
Oh,
now.
there's ridiculous.
Like,
Yeah. I just go to the Wayback Machine and look for a PDF.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I mean, even if you just type this in and then the word free,
Yeah.
Masonic and Occult Symbols Illustrated, Dr. Kathy Burns, and free, you're going to be able to go look at that book
every single thing
today,
that we tell you, everything that we have researched, everything that we like that, especially that from Mike and I's, from you get from us, is nothing that you can't know yourself, that you can't find yourself. You just have to want to look for it. You have to look for it. And I understand too, because I know it took me years to get to the point that I'm at. But that's one thing too that we're happy to help you with. We can help point you toward the right path so that it doesn't take you so long and it's not such a struggle to get to that point. And that's something that, we would love to help you do.
Yeah.
So please reach out to us if you do have any questions or are having difficulty finding information about a subject, and we'll be more than happy to do whatever we can to help.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And there are areas that are over the United States where there's different entities are in charge of those. So there's a star that you can look up. I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's a Rosicrucian cross, but it has all the demonic entities like Astaroth Ball and which parts they're in charge of. But it'll tell you which parts of the U.S. those entities are in charge of. the symbols that go with them. And then you'll start to see that if you go to those areas, those symbols are all over in those cities, telling you.
You'll start to see what the strongholds are
Yes.
of those particular
Yeah.
states and stuff, and what the purpose. You can find out what the purpose of your state was, the original purpose too, which does affect you still today with the strongholds. So yes, I think that was a lot of information. I want to remind you, when you see the triangle next time, when you see these people that they exalt doing the triangle, remember the Tower of Babel, and then so below the internal Tower of Babel that they are setting up. So remember that this isn't just something cute they do. This is something they're methodical and strategic and working hard at. Okay. So again, if you have any questions, if you have any criticisms, any comments, anything, please reach out to us. We all need to help each other. We need to understand this complex topic. And we can be found at www.warriorbrideministries.com. And there's different places there that you can fill out a little I want to chat, and you can put your comments. You can send an email to admin@wbmga.org. If you get this, if you see this before April 4th, join us at our training retreat. We have just a few seats left, but would love to have you. We'll get into much more depth and also have some fun. With the seriousness, it's important that we balance it with just joy, the fruits of the Spirit, fellowship, and nature. So it's going to be good, and some good food.
That's April 4th through the 6th.
April 4th through the 6th. That's right. And you can find the information on our website. So for now, we're going to sign off. Thank you for joining us. Please, if you have not subscribed or liked, please do so. Please share. We need to come together on this, and your part could be helping us share this and get the word out. And ultimately, this is all about the children. The reason we're digging into this is because the children and adults of survivors of childhood exploitation that come to the office every day, that they need help. And we need to understand what happened to them, the reasons it happened to them, and what we can do about it. And we will continue to unfold this, and we will start to get into what you can do and what the survivor can do. And so we're going to try to cover a lot of different aspects of this. We're just kind of laying the foundation right now of the roots of it. Like, where did this come from? How did it evolve? How long has it been here? Who's involved? We're starting to lay that foundation, and then we'll build from there with a lot of different information that you can implement. So for now, God bless. See you in the next episode, and please reach out.
Subscribe now for the truth they never wanted told.